To the agenda today.
Are there any members of the public who would wish to make a comment about any item which is not on the agenda today? Are there any commissioner comments? Patty.
I just want to join in you in wishing people a happy Earth Day. And I know that there's an event, I think George will give you maybe more information, George, on the ACES event tonight. And then I know we just had a little celebration down at the recycling center, which was great. It was interesting how interesting trash is. So I want to thank the people from the Pickens County landfill for organizing that event. It was fun.
Thank you.
George?
Yeah, that event at ACES tonight is from 5 to 7. It's part of their Green Drinks get together, but it's a celebration of Earth Day. It's sponsored by ACES, City of Aspen, and CORE. And just to piggyback off of earlier acknowledgments, today is the 45th anniversary of Earth Day. And it was, for those who don't know, it was founded by Gaylord Nelson. Gaylord Nelson was a governor and a U.S. senator from Wisconsin. And he got inspired to come up with this idea of Earth Day after witnessing a massive oil spill off of Santa Barbara in California. Of course, now since that time, that was in 1969. Since that time, of course, we've seen even worse oil spills from Exxon to BP. But I want to just take a second and just read a quote of his that came out from as part of his speech on the first Earth Day. Nelson declared, "Our goal is an environment of decency, quality, and mutual respect for all other human creatures and for all living creatures. The battle to restore a proper relationship between man and his environment, between man and other living creatures, will require a long, sustained political, moral, ethical, and financial commitment, far beyond any effort made before." So this was said 45 years ago. And this also prompted the establishment of the EPA, the passages of the Clean Air, the Clean Water Act, as well as the Endangered Species Act. And 45 years later, all of those are actually in question and jeopardy, unfortunately. So we've come a long ways, but as his last comment says, far beyond any effort made before, we have a long ways to go. And certainly now, I think the effort is to address global warming and also renewable energies. So we have a lot of work ahead of us.
There's one other event that I became aware of that's in Carbondale today, and it's a movie sponsored by the Roaring Fork Food Policy Council. The name of the movie is called The Power of Community: How Cuba Survived Peak Oil. And it's about an hour-long movie that tells about how in Cuba, when their oil supply was cut off in the 1980s by Russia, that they had a severe food crisis and the people started doing small-scale farming using more human labor, and instead of doing industrial scale agriculture using equipment and having to burn fossil fuel to accomplish that. So this will be at the 3rd Street Center at 6:30 tonight in Carbondale. If anyone is living down there. If you are watching this tomorrow on a replay, you will have missed it. But another event that's not really related to Earth Day, but it's also happening today, is that there's a meeting about the future of the Castle Creek Valley, and that's going to take place today from 4 to 6 at the King Cabin in Ashcroft. And it's sponsored by Pickens County and the U.S. Forest Service. So that would be a good one if anybody is interested in Castle Creek Valley and you either live up there or like to recreate up there or different things. Rachel?
Yeah, thank you. Certainly appreciate everyone's comments on Earth Day. I have my 24-year-old niece living with me, and She wasn't around 45 years ago, so trying to explain what Earth Day was about. And the interesting comment was really that, you know, when I was a child, it was acid rain that we were all worried about, not climate change, you know, and there's always new challenges and new struggles. So she really appreciated it, and I think she'll stop by ACES this afternoon. So thank you for that. I just wanted to mention that April is Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month in Picken County. And a little out of our normal order, we had a special meeting yesterday to read the proclamation so that then it could be reread at the celebration they're currently having over at the Yellow Brick right now. But I did want to mention it during our regular meeting, and I'm not going to read the entire proclamation, but just a couple paragraphs of our emphasis. You know, we have a great department and great human services outreach for child welfare protection. But what we're trying to emphasize with this resolution is that it's a community responsibility and a community involvement that makes this. So just two paragraphs here. Whereas Picken County recognizes that effectively intervening in the lives of children and families threatened by abuse or neglect is a shared community responsibility and highly values the strong partnerships that exist in our community between youth and family-serving nonprofit agencies, schools, law enforcement, public health and human services, faith communities, and extended families. And whereas by providing a safe and nurturing environment for our children, free of violence, abuse, and neglect, we can ensure that Picken County's children will grow to their full potential as the next generation of healthy citizens. So I really would like to extend our board's thanks to all those who are involved in those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Any other comments? Okay, moving on to our consent items with a single reading. There's actually two of those four items that I would like to pull are there, which are the second and fourth item. Is there any of the others that commissioners would like to pull?
I would make a motion to approve on single reading the approval of minutes, work sessions, March 17th, 24th, April 7th, and the regular meeting on April 8th. And the third item, which is the resolution reappointing Joe Krabacher to the P&Z Board.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the first and third items. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the second item is a resolution approving a revision of the 2015 budget for the half-cent transit sales and use tax. And Tom, you're the one listed to, you could give us a brief rundown on that first.
Sure. Tom Oken, County Treasurer. This resolution approves two increases to the 2015 budget for the half-cent transit sales and use tax fund. The first one is an increase of $1 million to the Ruby Park construction contribution from this fund, increasing it to a total of $4.9 million that we're contributing to that project. The second one adds $280,000 to the budget for Buttermilk Transit parking lot paving. This fund is actually managed by the EOTC, which stands for the Elected Officials Transit Committee, composed of this board, the Aspen City Council, and Town of Snowmass Village Council. And at a meeting of all those parties on March 5th, these two additions to the budget were approved. But subsequently, each separate entity has to ratify that approval by passing a resolution. So that's what this is about.
Thank you.
Tom, my concern has to do with several phone conversations I've had with former Commissioner Jack Hatfield about the spending EOTC money on the paving of the Buttermilk parking lot. And he is adamant in insisting that it's not proper for EOTC money to be spent on paving that parking lot. So I've done a lot of research on this, looking at kind of the history of it, and the Buttermilk parking lot was actually one of two parking lots along with the Intercept parking lot and the Buttermilk parking lot were listed as the two parking lots in the original transportation master plan when the half-cent transit sales and use tax was first approved. And what Jack's concern is, he said that the Buttermilk parking lot is not for use as a day skier parking for people skiing at Buttermilk. Its use is for transit-related things, for parking for the Highlands parking lot, where they would park there and then go over on a bus to Highlands, and then also use for uphill recreation, so people walking uphill to the government trail or whatnot would be allowed to park there, but not for the day skiers at Buttermilk. And so we have discussed, Jack and I have discussed this back and forth, and I've looked at all the wording in the documents allowing it, and in my mind, it's an okay expenditure to spend EOTC money on paving the Buttermilk parking lot because it's owned by Pickens County and it is designated for transit parking, and it's part of our whole transit system. And maybe where we are running into a problem is the use of the parking lot. In that Buttermilk employees are sometimes parking in there, the day skiers from Buttermilk are parking there, as well as some people parking to ride into Aspen on the bus or to go bicycling or to go uphill at Buttermilk or whatever. So I wanted to bring this point up and just to see what the sense from the rest of the commissioners is. Patty?
Yeah, you know, that's always been an issue out there, how to enforce that. Who's going to stand in the parking lot and say, where are you going? Are you going uphill? Are you using government trail? Are you getting on the bus? Are you going to Highlands? So it's kind of been, from my understanding of, you know, we put signage up this before, but who's out there to enforce it? I think that's always been an issue. I think there is a mixed use out there. I think you probably do get some day skiers that park there, but you probably, I'm sure that you get, I know a lot of people that use it for transit that drive down from Snowmass, park there and take the bus into town. I know a lot of the uphill skiers use it. I know a lot of the government trail people in the summer use it. So I just, unless, you know, our friend Jack Hatfield wants to stand in the parking lot and enforce that, it's a very difficult situation, and we've talked about that for years. I'm sure Brian can further explain it, but yeah, it's a good point, but it is a difficult one to enforce.
Rachel?
Yeah, I'd like to move forward with this. We discussed it at some length at the EOTC meeting with all concerned parties. It's an improvement to users of that lot one way or the other. You know, and we are cost sharing with the ski company to pay half of the cost. I think that's an important note. But at the end of the day, at that EOTC meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about how we should go forward to manage it in the future. And I think we put it on for a future discussion item of that group. But paving, it seems to be one of the first steps, because right now you can't even determine where a space should be. You know, if there's some paved portions and not paved portions, people are going to try and park in the paved portions no matter what their use is. So kind of bringing it up to a much more acceptable standard is the first step. And then working, I mean, I cavalierly suggested, but I think there's some merit to examining, perhaps the city of Aspen, you know, we'd be interested in long-term working with them to manage that lot, because they do have a transportation enforcement department and they manage the Brush Creek Intercept lot. So, you know, there may be some merit there, but I think the further use is going to be, and management issues will be discussed further with that EOTC. But moving forward with this contract now, we got the prices locked in and we have a cost share. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution revision to the 2015 budget for the half-cent transportation sales and use tax.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution. Is there further discussion? Michael?
I have a question, Tom. Also at that meeting, my recollection is we approved a $750,000 expenditure or grant to the salt. So why isn't that in this budget also
That's for a future year.
for a future year? So we
And
approved it this year.
So you
though.
approved it in concept, but it will have to be approved as the budget for, when is it?
Next year.
Is it next year?
2016.
2016?
Okay, thank you.
So it is listed though on,
Right.
you have a multi-year plan that says, here's what we have scheduled for future years, and it's listed there.
Brian, do you have anything to shed light on the issue of the paving of the parking lot?
Well, it's not a new idea. It was first proposed by the ski company in 2008, and we had planned to pave all of the parking facility with their participation. However, we didn't have enough money in the end, and we just paved the front third approximately. So this is really to pave the back 2/3 in the same fashion to share the expense 50-50. These lots were condemned for the purposes of transit and recreational parking. They're used for that purpose. 3.5, 4 months out of the year, there are day skier parking that takes place, but the rest of the time, there's transit parking and recreational parking taking place, just like they were for the purposes of condemnation. So.
Okay. So you would concur with my thinking that it's perfectly okay to use EOTC funds for paying for the paving?
You have to defer to the attorney's office, but it's a transit lot used for transit.
It's used for transit,
purposes,
which is
and
the
that's what
purpose of the fund.
money's made for.
Okay, thank you. I think that, a possible item for discussion in the future, we could consider whether we want to try to manage the parking lot in a different fashion somehow, which I don't know how we could do that without having a person on hand there all the time, but, John?
But Steve, I think to that point, we took the direction at the last DOTC meeting as needing to bring back a study and planning effort around parking really on the whole corridor, including the Brush Creek parking lot and Buttermilk parking lots. I think we have some similar issues about the stated use and how those facilities are being used. And so Brian is going to be working, or has started working, with EOTC staff to discuss what that might look like, so we can bring a proposal back to the EOTC to take a kind of a look at that corridor, and I think that probably encompasses management issues.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of the resolution, the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The other item is, item number 4 is a resolution approving appointments of members to the Rural Resort Regional Workforce Investment Board and appointing the state of Colorado as the operator of the workforce centers in the rural resort region. The reason I asked for this to be pulled is not that I have any objection to any of the appointments on there, including appointing Patty to the position, but when I was looking over the list, I noticed that Pickens County actually has a lot of vacancies from the private sector on this board, and there's vacant for food services and accommodations, a vacancy for arts, entertainment, and recreation, a vacancy for retail trade, and a vacancy for real estate. So we could actually have 4 more people from Pickens County if they were so interested to serve on this board. And I wanted to get your take on this, Patty, what the meetings are like. A lot of the other counties have these positions filled, and we don't.
Well, not a lot of activity. What I'm finding, just I've only really attended 2 meetings, 3 meetings maybe with the workforce group. what I'm finding is that not a lot of the activities or the enthusiasm is over here in the Roaring Fork Valley. Most of the efforts seem to be concentrated in the Vail Valley area, the I-70 corridor. We did have a meeting this past week where we did discuss there's a new federal act that's making some changes. It's going to be coming through the state of Colorado. I was just talking to Rachel, there's going to be a bill, late bill status, to take some of the language out in the Colorado Workforce Act so it complies with the federal act until they can fully address the language in the Colorado State Act. But as far as membership, I think it's an ongoing problem. Rob Ittner sat on this board, and I don't think he got any further with trying to get people to fill in. I think actually we're going to be losing the private health care person, too. There's some changes going on with Acid Valley Hospital and the Orthopedic Associates. So we're going to have a lot of vacancies. Overall, they look at the whole picture as far as the number of people sitting and the number of vacancies. So they get their percentages, because you have to have a certain percent of private sector and a certain percent of public sector. So it's an ongoing effort, and that's something that I'm going to try and take on now that we've actually had a meeting to discuss it.
Rachel?
Yeah, Steve, thanks for raising that point. I think that perhaps what we could do is ask, if they don't already, to have them write up a brief description of the purpose of the board, your role there, how many times a year they meet, things like that, and then see if we could solicit any members more aggressively, which we haven't done before. But I know I couldn't really fully explain to someone what would be expected of them and what would be the benefits coming out, and that's what Northwest COG needs to do, and then we could perhaps take it to the Chamber
Actually,
of
Northwest
Commerce
COG is totally out of the picture on this one, and the rural resort people are kind of in the room, but it's pretty much managed by the workforce people coming out of Denver or the local workforce people. It's interesting. I'm still trying to figure out what I do at those meetings. The meetings are great. They're once a month, but I do them at CMC on their conference system, which is an amazing opportunity. They do have once a year, they have a face-to-face meeting, which is going to be in July. But yeah, but I'll see if I can't get the people in charge.
To give you recruitment tools,
to give me
basically.
just a little paragraph, and maybe we can circulate it somehow to see if we can generate any interest.
at least ask.
It's a really good point. Thanks for bringing it up, Steve.
Okay, so we need a motion.
I'll do a motion to approve the resolution approving appointments of members to the Rural Resort Regional Workforce Investment Board and appointing the state of Colorado as the operator of the workforce centers in the rural resort region.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. You'll pass that on to them.
Okay, I'm going to take a step backward in the agenda. We did have one member of the public who came in several minutes late, just after we had finished the public comment. And
Steve, that's really not legitimate to go backwards to open discussion. It starts at 12 o'clock.
I don't mind. It's public comment. We have time. This is a very short agenda. I don't think you should object, Rachel.
Well, will we do this all the time? If someone came in, at any point in the meeting, do we just stop and reopen up public comment? We've been talking a lot about how do we streamline, get our agendas together more quickly, Michael, and frankly, I have to drive to Denver tonight to be able to testify on some bills that are important to us. So I was looking forward to a good agenda, and we have some open discussion. We don't even know what that is. But Steve, it's your meeting. If we want to set this precedent, that's fine.
well, my thought is, Mr. Veazey just came in a couple minutes. I mean, we had just finished, and he is a member of the public, and
Certainly.
to me, it's important to listen to what the public has to say. So, would the other commissioners mind? No.
No, it's fine.
Okay. And, okay, MZ, you could come up, keep your comments as brief as you can,
Thank you, Your Honor.
in deference to, our time also.
Trust me, time is money, as Ben Franklin said. He did a lot of other things, too. All right, very, very quickly. I have a 2+ pager here. Deals with the airport, all right, to make it somewhat succinct. Now, the way I got the ideas is from the Burbank Airport. You're working on things, right? When you go to the website, well, you see the benefits of the airport as the state has said, in general. All right, specifically, the meeting that was done last week, if I remember correctly, time goes so fast, I'm getting old, Patty, so bear with me. What happens, they've begun to do the assessments. All right, a lot of this information I got actually is from the Burbank Airport in terms of outlining. It can help speed up the process. Things were discussed about the footprint of the noise. I was told that it wasn't loud enough for the mitigation, for soundproofing. Plus, it would be burdensome on the county when it came for finance. I say, well, Burbank, they've done it, and they have people sign papers, Anyway, you have that. You can look it over. It's not, anyway, you basically have the modules. All right, it's a module idea, so you could stick it in, you can work with it. You can go to Burbank's website, look at documentation. That means you can go to other airports, big or small, see what they have, and then, then what you do is do a fusion. I'll just say it like that for now. The other thing that was interesting was the coroner yesterday. And it reminded me, as I'm going back in time, about readings, how various counties will negate, like, federal laws, that they won't do, like, food stamps and all that. It was like over 425 back in the 60s refused food stamps for the poor people and all that. All right, well, what happened with autopsies used to be very popular. And, hospitals used to do them. When someone died, that's how medical knowledge, about diseases and all that had increased, but then they've stopped that many decades back. Well, one revenue source, and you can talk with the city attorney, you can speak with Mr. Peacock over here, might be at times when someone dies at a hospital. It's rare when they'll do an autopsy. It's only if they suspect about the dying. Well, you have a revenue source to help you out to pay for the machine, because the machine's going to have to pay for itself eventually. And the $600 or whatever he had said yesterday, it's going to take a long time. All right, so you might want to see if certain kinds of deaths, even if they aren't suspect, to do autopsies. All right, so the hospital has to kick out some cash. All right, you have some other clinics, they kick out some cash. Down Valley, there's that Valley Hospital, where they call it, in Glenwood Springs, they kick out some cash. And you may have some other medical facilities that kick out some cash to help pay for the machine. At the same time, your coroner had a very good idea in terms of saving things. But remember, years back, they used to do autopsies. They don't do them anymore. Now, something like being in L.A., and this has been for quite a few years now, there's people that are on Medicaid and on Medicare, and they get gym membership in the private gyms. I mentioned it here to some people, and they looked at me strange, but LA Fitness, you can name them. And there's one guy, he's an agent for sports guys, like basketball players, baseball guys. He can't wait until next year. So he can get on Medicare, and his LA Fitness will be paid for. All right, so I don't know what's happening here, and there's one other thing too: Obama phones. Now people go to welfare office in L.A. County. You hear about Obama phones. I even heard from someone from Chicago who's still in contact with people in Chicago. They have Obama phones, but when I mentioned Obama phones here, people looked at me strange. So I don't know how you're running the county or how the state may be affecting things, but you do have senior citizens and others, and for health reasons. If LA can do it, surely you can do it. Gym membership. And remember, it's not going to be the most expensive gym membership. And if it comes to the Obama phones for those people, that's about it. So something else to think about. And I was surprised. Oh, one other thing that's strange. Here, I thought they were doing what they're doing in L.A., and I have to figure other parts of California. The food stamps you can use in fast food places. But when I mentioned that, people said they had no idea. It's like, Jack in the Box and some others, even private restaurants in L.A. and all that, some of them will take the food stamp. All right? So they have signs, neon signs, EBT, something like that. So I was just kind of surprised because I look and I see, how even things are being distributed. So maybe those are some ideas that you might want to investigate and, see what you can do. I mean, there are people that call themselves liberal here or progressive, and I'm conservative the way that they talk about me, so who knows? But look, thank you for your time. Thank you for the change in protocol, and I do understand what you're speaking about at the same time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, MZ.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Okay, going on to the next item is individual consideration items. And this one is for first reading set for public hearing on May 13th. It's an ordinance amending Title 12 of the Pickens County Code regarding public use of open spaces and trails property. And Dale Will is our director of the Open Space and Trails Department, is here to speak to that.
Thank you, Steve. And I have with me John Armstrong. I think everyone knows John as our senior ranger for Open Space and Trails. And we're happy to be here with these proposed updates to Title 12 of the county code. It's a piece of county code that doesn't come up very often in here, but comes up all the time out on our trails and on our open space properties. This was originally adopted by the county commissioners back in 1993 when the open space program proper was just getting up and going, but the county had accumulated a lot of trails that had been donated or otherwise acquired by the county, and rules were needed for those. The original structure of Title 12 is, in retrospect, a little bit peculiar. It sets forth three different sections that all overlap somewhat. One sets forth rules for trails, another one sets forth rules for open space properties, and the third one sets forth rules for everything. Well, we've got a lot of trails within open space properties, and having three different places you got to go to check to see what's allowed has become cumbersome over time. So one of the primary things that we're seeking to do here is collapse all three of these sections into a single section that's organized not by the type of property, but by the nature of the use. So I hope it's clear to everyone looking through this. We now have sections for dogs and rights of way and that sort of thing. I don't know if you have specific comments you want to make, John. I don't know that we're going to try to go through all the changes in detail, but we're happy to talk about anything specifically and take it from there.
Patty?
John, you going to say something?
Just that we referenced all our other open space and trails departments in the state, or not all, but many of them on the Front Range that have very extensive codes and referenced them and updated ours. There were some uses that are perhaps newer, a lot more mountain biking and that sort of thing. But basically, we're here to answer questions that you might have if you've reviewed it.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I just
Patty
started
Bendridge.
talking, I noticed it. Yeah, on the last page under section C, criminal enforcement, it brings up a good point, something that the board has been talking about, which was our code enforcement officer, since we currently don't have that position filled. Would that be the person who generally?
Well, we do have zoning and code enforcement capabilities and community development. We still need to sit down
Figure out
and
what we're going to do.
talk.
I just wanted to point that out because it is referenced in here. The other issues under civil enforcement, it talks about damaged any county property. Is that any county property in general, or is it specific to open space and trails property?
Now, that's an interesting question, and this is existing language.
Okay.
Where is it?
So that may make it okay. I just didn't know if we needed to differentiate in this ordinance.
Well, this is within Title 12, which is specific to
All of the county property.
to county open space. So I would assume that by implication, this really only applies to property that's either acquired from the open space fund or designated as county open space throughout.
Should we differentiate that in the language to clarify it? Or does it matter?
It won't hurt.
Okay, I would like to see that clarified.
Okay.
And then one last thing, under the, back to the criminal enforcement, it talks about the subject to imprisonment for no more than 90 days per offense. This is people who violate the ordinance 3. This is a general thing. I'd like to see that language included in our wildlife ordinance as far as enforcement. So can we make a note to maybe look at that? Thank you. So I think that our wildlife enforcement would benefit from that provision. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, George?
John, I had an interesting call the other day. It was prompted by comments that were due for the Rio Grande Master Plan. And it sort of stemmed from the restrictions or requirements for dogs. And I know you're the dog expert, whether you want to be or not. But anyway, here you say that those persons attending dogs on trails must always carry a receptacle such as a plastic bag for removal or excrement. Dog waste must be immediately picked up or either carried off open space property or disposed in a trash receptacle by owners or guardians.
Right.
And that's been working pretty well. So the comment or the question came, and you probably know where this is going, is how about horses on the Rio Grande Trail?
Oh.
We get a couple of complaints a year, and we have such so little horse use on the trails that I don't think it's much of an issue. But we get into that argument of the feces of a carnivore versus the feces of an herbivore, which I think we all can agree there's a tremendous difference there, and there's a tremendous health risk difference there. We just don't see that much of it. I'm sure if somebody ran into a fresh horse pie with their bike, you know, it could be unpleasant, but did you want to include that with it?
No,
Cycling horses?
It'd be timely to at least bring it up and see how you would respond. And I would agree. I mean, you know, riding the Rio Grande Trail, certainly in the spring and the fall, down valley, you're always sort of working your way around deer scat all the time. So, and I have worked my way around some horse poop, but in general, horses don't tend to use the Rio Grande Trail because it's paved and they rather be on a soft surface. And with the advent of some of our new property acquisitions and trails, that will even help further.
If those bears were pets, we'd ticket somebody, but
Yeah. Some of those bears are pets, I think.
I suppose.
Michael?
So this Title 12, as you go down it, there's various, this is for enforcement purposes, is that what it's for?
Yes.
So it allows rangers primarily to say that you haven't followed the regulations and we're going to issue a ticket?
Well, it states what the allowed uses are or what the prohibitions are on open space, and that changes a little bit with management plan, but this is to govern all of open space and trails properties and to give us the guidelines and empowerment to enforce for the protection of the trail users and for the resource.
Okay, well, let me just go down on A, the motorized vehicles, you ban electrically assisted bicycles and stuff, and I view that really as analogous to the ski company banning snowboards for years. They just couldn't see their way clear of doing it. I think that electric bicycles deserve more consideration than you give them here. And I know you're planning in the future to sort of have a convocation about electric bicycles, but I just wanted to put my 2 cents in about that.
Right, and you're aware, of course, that a person with a disability may be allowed, depending on the trail and the mode of transportation that they're using, they may be allowed under that OPDMD, other power-driven mobility devices, federal law.
Right, I just hope in the future that you give electrically assisted bicycles full consideration, that's all.
And that's an excellent issue, and if I might share a few more observations about that. With technology evolving the way it is today, there are e-bikes in Europe that apparently will do 150, 200 miles an hour. There's electric motorcycles now. They're pretty impressive. And we could try to allow something with a speed limit or a speed capacity for these devices. One of the reasons we're going very slow on this subject is because we have done some capacity studies on some of our trails, particularly the Rio Grande Trail, that show that in the month of July, that trail is at capacity the way it is already. And so we don't want to discriminate against people that would like to use an electric bike in a safe way, but we're not certain that the trail would take the additional numbers at higher speeds. Now, maybe we'll come to that conclusion, but it's the kind of thing that we want to approach it very, very carefully.
Yeah, I mean, the speedometer of my car goes up to 90 or 100 or something, but I don't go that fast. I go at a rate that's appropriate for where I'm at. So the capacity of speed is, a horse can also gallop at a very high rate, and you said that you can't gallop, and you have to trot or canter, and so. And I suppose have you ever ticketed anybody for galloping a horse on the Rio Grande Trail?
Couldn't catch him.
Okay.
Saw that horse.
So you can ticket someone here, it looks like, for attentiveness or lack of attentiveness on the trails. How do you quantify lack of attentiveness?
Can you show us which section you're in?
That's 3 under right-of-way D.
You know what we've done, Michael, is down in the lower valley, RAFTA has a speed limit of 20 miles per hour on the trail. And we talked about this at great length and decided that was not what we wanted to use, and we base it on appropriateness, because 20 miles an hour, if you were going through Stein Park on the Rio Grande Trail on a crowded day, it would probably be completely inappropriate, and 24 miles an hour on sections of the Rio Grande, maybe out on the airport open space where you can see for over a quarter of a mile, might be just fine. So we really, I think that the wording is fair for the public and for rangers to base it on appropriateness rather than a speed limit. And when you get into a speed limit, then I guess we'd have to carry a speed gun. So,
right. But Michael's asking about the thing with the earbuds. That's another interesting issue, in that we require people who are passing to announce that they're coming. We thought about prohibiting earbuds because it does no good to announce if the person you're announcing to can't hear you. We stopped short of prohibiting earphones here and let people use their discretion to leave the things at a level where they can actually hear. But you're correct. In theory, if someone announces to someone and the person has just got their audio device up so loud that they're not capable of hearing it, and technically we could ticket them for that. We do have an overall enforcement philosophy that I don't think anyone gets a ticket for anything here on their first encounter with one of our rangers. They get a conversation, and it's only number 2 that then goes to the ticket. And so a lot of this stuff is never going to result in tickets, but technically it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to me the battle here is that we have an enforcement policy and we have a desire for our users to act responsibly. And then this Title 12 reflects that. But it also is an enforcement tool. So there's a tension there, and there's the the sense that, you know, I just don't know of any trail users who carry a copy of Title 12 around with them. So, you know, the ability for you guys to go out and say, listen, you're not being attentive, or, you know, further on, there's about passing on the trail, that you shouldn't pass within 2 feet of the person you're trying to pass. Well, I mean, if that were taken to court, how would you say, I think that person, would you just say, I think that person passed within 1'11" of that person, and therefore violated Title 12? And the person subject to the ticket's gonna say, no, it was more than 2'1". So, I mean, you know, those are very specific things, seem to me work against the general application of be courteous, be attentive, be careful on the trail.
Well, we don't take anything to court unless we can prove it, so you're correct. Some of this is not really designed to go all the way to, you know, winning these cases, but nonetheless, it does create a good basis for a conversation between a ranger and a user. Now, if someone made physical contact with someone when they were passing and knocked somebody over, we'd be able to say, well, you couldn't have touched them unless you were within 2 feet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think this discussion reflects on the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. And if you want to read it and just, like you said, get it down to the millimeter in enforcement and stuff, that's not where we want to go, and that's not what this document is meant to spell out. But I believe in the spirit of the law. This document gives us a lot of support and a basis from which to work on. Yeah, I wouldn't be trying to ding someone, if you will, for being 23 inches close to the person. But in the spirit of the law, were they going too fast, too close? Was that person attentive? They had their tunes blasting and the person's honking their horn behind them. Those are all things we have to take into consideration. It's a great deal of that is covered with ranger training and experience in the field, and I feel that we have your support to have some discretion. We have to have discretion, but this is a good guideline for us.
Yeah, and I understand that. But there's a tension. You have people who are careless users, and you have people who are responsible users, and it'd be better if most people were responsible users. And right now, I'm not sure where the percentage is, but I would like to see more and more responsible users.
So wouldn't we all?
Yeah, and I'd like to actually see more rangers on the trail. I think that I don't think we actually have enough rangers on the trail. It's rare that you see a ranger, quite frankly.
Feel like.
So, and given the increasing number of trails, it's, unless you concentrate, you're just not going to see a ranger, quite frankly.
Well, thanks for that. And again, the way I look at rangering is outreach, education, compliance, and enforcement in that order. And we work with people. I think we go way out of our way. Someone told me just yesterday, you guys are too lenient. Well, we don't always hear that, but we go out of our way. We go above and beyond. I feel, working with people to get the compliance without the ticket, because the ticket is very effective, but it's the last tool in the quiver for us.
Yeah.
If we can get compliance without it, that's where we're going to go.
Yeah, I noticed that if I wear a tan shirt with long sleeves, people slow down.
Pass you at 2 feet.
Yeah.
I'll get you one.
Give me a wide berth.
Rachel?
I have a few more questions, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Is it okay, Rachel?
Yeah, certainly,
You don't-
Michael.
Is it okay if I do this?
Yes, I think Steve thought you were
I
through
thought you were
after
finished there
all
when
those
you-
other
Um,
comments.
the section on domestic animals, you sort of, you include horses and dogs on the trail, but there are people who might have llamas or burros on the trail, and those really aren't covered. I mean, are you violating regulations if you are walking your llama on the trail?
That is an excellent question. Let me think about that first.
I had a family with their llama on leash last year on the trail, and that was a first.
I know, but I used to walk my burros on the trail before it was considered the trail, and it was a nice way of exercising the pack animal and getting them ready. And actually, we went up Smuggler. But Smuggler's a county road, so that'd be okay, I guess. Or is it considered?
Well, I think we would take that as a welcome amendment to this language and on second reading clarify. I mean, you can ride your horse. You should be able to walk your horse or your burro or your llama.
Yeah.
I think that's a good catch, because I think the way this was designed was so that people didn't bring their flock of goats out onto open space and graze them. To me, that's the way that was written. So, yeah, that's a good catch.
Okay. Then there's the fishing access says that you should only access the river on designated trails. I'm not sure I know where any designated access to the rivers are off, say, the Rio Grande Trail. So it seems to me peculiar to have that. If you don't have, you might have some designated signs, but most of the access to the river is not designated. It's simply accepted as, I'm going to go down to the river.
We are attempting to refine those things as we go. And one of the action items in the Rio Grande Gorge Management Plan, Roaring Fork Gorge Management Plan we just adopted, was to work with the anglers to deal with the labyrinth of fishing trails that come down off of Highway 82 into the gorge. Gary, do you want to comment on that subject of, is it really realistic to restrict fishing access to designated trails?
Well, and one of the things that we're really working on right now is to try to get all of these fishing accesses signed. And we have signs on order, and we've been working with John Ely on fishing easement areas. But all of our properties, if they have a management plan, like the Roaring Fork Gorge, we're going to do a river conservation plan, and then we will determine in there that along the Rio, you can go off the river in the Slaughterhouse Canyon area where appropriate or something like that. But we're trying to help people, like, knowing there's a fishing access and there's a private property or there's some type of thing, to try to avoid the myriad of trails that are happening along certain properties and trails, and trying to work on that over time. The fishing restricted piece has been part of our code since all along. This is not new. So
Right.
This is another area for.
But it seems to me it's confusing. If you don't have the signs up and they aren't designated, then you get there's a possibility of really subverting the whole idea, right? Since you essentially saying, well, we don't have designated signs, we will in the future, and now we don't, but you're still not supposed to be on that trail. So I think that, I'm not suggesting we look for a solution now, but I'm just saying there's a contradiction there and we need to work that out.
Well, I think that's a good catch as well, though. Can we come up with a clarification on second reading and drop it into that?
Well, I trust you the best and the brightest, certainly can, so.
Just a couple hours ago, I was talking with one of the commercial fishing guides, and we're soliciting their input on this exact issue. And one of the things that he requested was thorough signage at popular fishing portals, but it was in the more etiquette realm of what's appropriate with the fishing community, and it would include a lot of suggestions that aren't necessarily law, but that are you know, the accepted right way to do it. And I thought that was a great idea. I'd never heard that from the guides before, but I thought, yeah, that's it wouldn't be law, but this is the way it's done. And I think.
Well, I think that's the overarching hope for this Title 12 is actually the laws are minor, but the etiquette, the responsibilities are major, and somehow we have to transmit that to the users. So the other thing was commercial use of the trail, and I'm not exactly sure where that was, but you prohibit it. But there are commercial uses of the trail when people rent bicycles and go on tours down. Is that considered a commercial use? If you're renting a bicycle and you're headed down the trail, is that a commercial? And the bicycle shop said go down the trail?
Well, let me jump in and say commercial activities have to be permitted through another section that's referenced here. Now, we are trying to catch up with the myriad types of commercial activities that are going on that we haven't yet pulled under the umbrella. We started out with river rafters as being the most obvious launching with, you know, fairly big clientele and large sums of money and everything. I think that that's a good question. Is it a commercial activity for these bike tours or large groups to go down? I'm not sure that simply renting the bike constitutes a commercial use of the open space, but certainly.
But if you had a guide, for instance, that was going to lead you down the trail, and that was all sponsored by a bike shop, that might be considered a commercial use.
That's definitely in the realm of the commercial use, and it's a really, I'm glad you brought this up, because ever since I've rangered, we've been looking for a tool to get bike bells on rental bikes, and there's an argument that this is too much government. You're telling us to put bells on every bike, but one of the number two complaint on open space and trails and parks all the way across the nation is bicycles, and it's inappropriate speeds or passing and failure to announce. Those are the big ones, and we have talked for years on how can we get the local shops, other than asking, which hasn't been very successful, getting bells on the bikes, because the people want them, the people that are getting passed want them, the people that are on the bikes actually have said that they like having that. And we've grappled with how can we do that, and I think all of these bike rental shops are within the city of Aspen limits, so I don't know, I myself am kind of looking for a tool or some suggestions on how we might do that. So, but I don't think that it's a commercial use.
Can't rent a car without a horn.
But yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting because people flock to Europe and go on bicycle tours and accept all the regulations that go along with that, and yet come back to this country and say there's too much regulation. You know, it's minor compared to Europe. So I'll leave it at that. You know, it's good. I think that we need to look for a way to infuse the community with responsible trail use, and I'm not sure how to do that.
You're looking at it.
Well, we need more. Yeah. So, clone yourself.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Rachel?
Thank you, Steve. I agree with many of the points that Michael has made, in particularly looking at the Section J, commercial activities limited. To me, that paragraph really needs to be expanded considerably, and to be more specific. The examples Michael gave are the ones I was thinking of. It's the tour companies and loading X many people up to go in a pack down the trail. Are they going single file? Do they all have the bells? You know, things like that. So I think there literally need to be some examples within the section of when a permit is not needed, that, you know, a family of 5 has rented a bike and they're going on a bike ride. That's one thing. A commercial group of 25 that departs at a specific time starts to be another. And I don't want to inhibit those activities but how do we balance the use? And I think that also, to me, the commercial activity a little bit needs to be broken into the dry land and the water type of activities, because there are discussions about, which we've seen in the North Star Management Plan, related to the boat put-ins and put-outs for paddle boarding, and when it is too large of a group, is it just a random occurrence that there's 125 people there for a wedding, and where did they rent all those paddle boards at once? But I think we're going to see more and more commercial activities filling in those opportunities and making those things available. So this paragraph to me really needs to be expanded and broken into categories and given some real examples, so that people reading through there can't say, well, that doesn't mean me, or are very clear that does mean me. The other item is that I do support these as standards on the trail related to passing, or the earbuds and being able to be attentive. And I'd point out that in driving, there's a kind of general catch-all where you can't do distracted driving. And it's whether you're eating or putting on your makeup or talking on the cell phone or whatever, but it's a catch-all for all sorts of different behaviors where you're not paying enough attention and are therefore putting other people at risk. And well, clearly we don't have a heavy-handed enforcement activity or numbers for that matter. It also, these are standards. Without standards to uphold, you can't just put up a sign to say, everyone please be nice, courteous, and responsible, and not tell them what those things mean, what it means to be those things. And this is important also because it's not necessarily Pickens County saying, we're going to issue you a ticket because you violated so many times. It's about members of the public who may be hurt, who have a civil case against the person who hurt them. And if there's no standards, how do you judge that, you ran into me because you were going 50 miles an hour on a blind curve with your earbuds on and weren't looking at people? It's that person who's injured who's going to have the case, far more than Pickens County is going to have the case. And they need to have some standards that they can be able to discuss. I think all of this as a upgrade and refinement of the code, and I'm sure there's other small refinements in the language, point out to me the question of how accurately are we signing, or do we need to also update the signs at the entrance to the various trails, that can go through and point out some of these key items, maybe even reference the code, how to look it up on your smartphone since you're there, and since everyone seems to have a smartphone anymore, that you can just go straight to Section 12 Pickens County Code and look up whatever you want. But I think that the signs at the access points coming to and from the trails is going to be the most important way to get the message out about these codes. And I already heard you doing that with fishing accesses, but I know that overall we just kind of constantly have to re-improve those signs anyhow, because there's usually new trails and new cutoffs and things like that. And then the last, I'm really glad you're giving a lot of thought to electric bicycles or vehicles on the trail system. I know from walking the Rio Grande near my house, you frequently are passed by people really close, really fast speeds. And to just start seeing that become a new rental opportunity in town, that it's not really about the recreation, the athleticism, but it's about the speed, and this is an open course and there's no cars. And I would be very, very concerned about changing that dynamic. It'd be kind of like saying we should open our wilderness areas to electric vehicles for those, to make sure you can get up the trail. So I'm concerned about that, and there may be appropriate times, there may be appropriate regulations that make it appropriate, but I think, as you've said, Dale, it's a much longer conversation, and we end up needing to keep that consistency with the other management on the Rio Grande Trail as well. So that's important, that people don't, your vehicle is legal on this section of the road, it's not legal on the next section of the road, and then it's legal again, can be really problematic. So I applaud your efforts on that, and I think it's important that we continue to watch the all-terrain vehicle type of bills that have been in the state legislature. It failed again this year, but it will probably come forward again to try to license all ATVs for all county roads. And that was something we kept fighting for, the local control aspect of, and the ability to bar them from some roads. but it starts to become a, well, if we can't be on the roads, we'll use these parts of the trails, and it just is a snowballing issue from county to county. But thank you so much for doing this. I think it's good work.
So, do you have any more comments?
No,
Okay. Well, I just have a brief comment. Most of what my thoughts have been spoken by other commissioners, but I would like to weigh in on the electric assisted bike issue. To me, and I think we need to visit it, to have further discussion down the road, and I'm okay with leaving it in the way it's worded now. But in some instances of the Rio Grande Trail especially, a lot of the trails are for recreation. A lot of people use the Rio Grande Trail for commuting. And if allowing an electric assisted bike on the Rio Grande Trail got some cars off the road because people could use the Rio Grande Trail to get to town easier, and there's not a whole lot of good options if they're on Highway 82 or if they're going up over McLean Flats Road with the hills on there with a bicycle, makes it harder. I've never ridden an electric assisted bike, so I'm not sure how they do going up a steep hill, but I think that we should consider them for commuting purposes on certain trails might be okay. And I think the main issue has to do with speed. Somebody on a racing type bicycle can go way faster on the Rio, say down the Rio Grande or something than a person on an electric assisted bike who's just taking their time and getting to work. So I think the speed of the person or the transportation method is almost more important than what type of transport it is. So that's something to think about in the future.
I guess I'm going to weigh in on that, because I think we're going down a slippery slope. As soon as you start to think about allowing electrically assisted bikes, then you open up the door for, what are these other things called? These
Segways.
You open up segways, and you open up, who knows what the next generation of recreational mobility will be. And I think, as has been stated, and anyone who uses that trail like I do on a regular basis, in the summertime it is extremely crowded. And actually, for a bicyclist, you really can't go fast, but at least you have more control. And to have someone who perhaps is renting an electrically assisted bike that is not familiar with it, they're heavier bikes, that in itself could cause a problem. So I'm going to weigh in on the other side and leave it to the Open Space and Trails Board to have a deliberate discussion on that and weigh all the pros and cons, and then eventually come back to us. But at this point, I don't see it. I don't see it as a benefit for commuters. It's just going to impact those who are actually commuting on bicycles, or those who are actually going for an early morning walk. So that's my 2 cents. With that, if you're ready to accept the motion, I will make one, and that is to, I'm sorry.
Can I make a suggestion before you make your motion, George, on the second section having to do with enforcement, which I'm having a hard time scrolling this through, so I can't give you a page number as it appears in the online packet, but at any rate, the enforcement section, paragraph C, deals with criminal enforcement. There's a reference to Article 12 of the Pickens County Home Rule Charter. I think that's probably intended to be the Pickens County Code. And then the final sentence of that section says that each day a violation of the ordinance continues shall constitute a separate offense. I've seen that language before in building violation applications and things of that nature. For this, it'd probably be more appropriate to say that each occurrence constitutes a separate violation, or something along those lines.
And that's in the existing code, but
Yeah.
why not change it?
Okay, so what I would do is I'd make a motion to accept the ordinance amending Title 12 of the Pickens County Code regarding public use of open space and trails properties, set for public hearing on May 13th, with some of the comments and recommendations to come back to us at second reading as have been presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve with the additional language suggestions added in. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
If I could just address Rachel's concern about signage, and open space and trails is already in the first year of our new sign code, which we've spent a ton of energy and quite a bit of money on, and we'll start to see those signs in the next couple months, and they'll be a cohesive, not all different colors and all different sizes and everything. So it should be great, but we put a lot of effort into it. So
Thank you. Glad
hope
to
you
know
like
that.
it.
Okay, now let's take the vote again, because I didn't actually vote.
We didn't vote.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We look forward to the next rendition.
Enjoy the trails.
Slowly and carefully.
Responsible.
Before we move into the next section, do board members want a 5-minute break right now, or do you want to forge ahead?
I'd like to forge ahead.
Forge
but-
ahead.
Okay. Next section is individual consideration items, second readings, and these are public hearing items. The first one is a resolution about the Colorado Emergency Fire Fund, and Valerie is here to present this.
Valerie McDonald, County Emergency Manager. The county has 3 wildfire management agreements with the State Division of Fire Prevention and Control, DFPC. I'm here with 2 of those agreements today. The first one is the Emergency Fire Fund, or the EFF. The EFF is basically a funding mechanism to help the county pay for wildfire suppression costs on private land. The county has participated in this fund for about 25 years. We paid $45,000 for 2015. Steve, as you've said before, it's very similar to an insurance policy. We hope we don't need to use it because we have a fire, but we have it if we do. Any questions?
Can we look at both of these since Valerie's here? Can we see both this item and then item number 10? Is that okay, Steve, since we've got her here in front of us?
And the last item on the agenda.
Well, maybe we could rearrange the agenda. Let's deal with this one, and I wouldn't mind having Valerie stay at the table, and we would deal with item number 10 while
That's
she's
okay.
here.
Yeah. Thanks, Valerie.
Okay. So any questions on the EFF?
No changes from the previous?
No.
It's a,
Public hearing.
oh, this is a public hearing. Are there any members of the, and I'm going to open a public hearing and keep it open through all of the public hearing items. Does any member of the public wish to speak on this item at this time? Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the board.
I'd like to do a motion to approve a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control for the Cooperative Wildfire Protection Agreement.
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Michael?
Valerie, how do you spell your name?
It's spelled 2 different ways there. It's VALERIE MAC.
Okay, because it's spelled with an A in
Right.
item 6, and it's spelled with an E in
I noticed that also.
item 10.
Okay,
Glad we clarified
any
that.
further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll jump forward to item number 10, and this is, let Valerie proceed with the rest of her day without waiting around. This has to do with the intergovernmental agreement with the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control.
All right, well, this is second reading for the Cooperative Wildfire Protection Agreement, again with the Department of Fire Prevention and Control, the state agency. This is the overarching agreement of over the other 2. This agreement governs the relationship between the county and the state on preparedness, planning, and prevention of wildfires. It also clearly defines the roles and responsibilities and how we go about it if we have a fire that exceeds our capabilities to handle it locally, and we push to the state for assistance. This agreement updates an agreement we had with the state what was called the state-county agreement from, I think it was 1991. So this agreement basically better reflects the current statutes and practices. Any questions?
So there's no changes from this document to the one we saw at first hearing, first reading?
No, no corrections.
Valerie, part of a year ago, we got a draft of a wildfire management plan, I believe it was called, that was a Picken County specific fire
Oh, I know what
management
you're talking
plan that had not been updated in years, and a whole lot of counties apparently hadn't updated theirs. How do these agreements fit in with that fire management plan?
Well, that's a fourth plan. And that's with the Colorado State Forest Service. And that's our Community Wildfire Protection Plan, CWPP. And we did update that plan, and we did have it adopted about a year ago. So we are current with that. And it's basically just a wildfire plan for our county specifically.
Okay, so that would be used in conjunction with if there were a big fire and we're fighting it cooperatively with other agencies.
Right.
That would kind of be our guiding document for that.
That's just, that agreement pretty much outlines what we have here, what the hazards are, and what we're trying to do to address them. The agreement that you just talked about, I would refer to our annual operating plan, and that's the third agreement I was talking about. We sit down with all of our stakeholders every year. This year it happened in February. We had, I don't know, probably about 35 people, state, local, federal, all of our partners who would come to the table if we had a big event here. It's the tactical or operational document and how we would deal with the wildfire here.
Okay.
There's a lot of planning.
A lot of planning, and hopefully we never have to use it. Or
Right.
if we do have to use it, we're ready for it.
We're as ready as we can be on the business management side of it. We've got all of our agreements done. We know who our partners are, and we do a lot of training and practicing.
Okay. Let's see, I need a motion for this.
Public comment?
This is, thank you, Rachel. This is a public hearing. Any comments from the public on this matter? Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the board.
Ready for a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding for participation to the Colorado Emergency Fire Fund with the state of Colorado for the benefit of the Division of Fire Prevention and Control. And again, thank
No,
you,
that's
Val.
the same motion. We need number 10.
Number 10.
I thought I pulled out number 10. How about this one? Okay, I'll do this one. Jeanette, retract that one. I'm getting number 1 out of the way. This is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control for the Cooperative Wildfire Protection Agreement.
Second.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sounded too familiar.
Yeah,
Moved
that's too
and
familiar.
seconded to approve. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Would you guys let me read through that whole thing before you call me? Just to make sure I got it right, right?
Thank you, Valerie.
Thanks, Valerie.
Okay, moving to item number 7. It's an ordinance authorizing a right-of-way grant with Rocky Mountain Natural Gas to install a natural gas pipeline along various open space trails and properties.
Good afternoon. Matt Adeletti, Picken County Open Space and Trails. This is for a right-of-way grant to Rocky Mountain Natural Gas. They've been operating a 6-inch gas line for 54 years in the Upper Valley, and that 6-inch line is not viable anymore. They need to replace it with a 10-inch line, which they have been doing, and this right-of-way grant is for them to install the underground line in a couple of open space properties. The first one is the Woody Creek area, and I'm going to bring up a map here for you.
Steve, you may need to put down that.
Make this a little smaller. This, just to orientate you here, this is Woody Creek Road here, and this here is the Rio Grande Trail easement, which is the old railroad easement, and right here is Upper River Road, which is actually in part of the easement as well. The pedestrian, or the bridge, the Rio Grande Trail bridge is right in here. And the section that they want to put it within the easement area is in this heavy line here. This is how the 10-inch line is going to go. The easement is going to be approximately 35 feet in width. This is going to, they're planning on installing this after April 24th and before Memorial Day. And Mike Moore is here from, he's the landman for Rocky Mountain Natural Gas. He's here to field and more specific questions. Gary Tenenbaum's here from our open space program, and GR from Public Works is here, and Lance is here from ComDev as well to answer any of the more specific questions that I can't field on this.
I was curious where the 6-inch line runs. Is it in our trail right of way, or is it?
No, the existing 6-inch pipeline is to the west of Upper River Road. It actually runs through private parcels along the old railroad grade, Doc Henry, Rainbow, whatnot, down through there. So it actually runs through the Woody Creek Mobile Home Park. So we are looking to lower, of course, the pressure on that, but still serve Woody Creek off that line.
Okay. And when you're installing the 10-inch line, they're so widely separated, there's no danger. Is there any places where they intersect? Or?
No, the only part they intersect would be up at the Aspen, Mass. We cross it perpendicular. But no, nothing in this area.
Okay.
No service will be interrupted.
Okay.
We also have traffic control plans for this area as well. I can bring up and show you if you'd like.
Okay. Do you want to go on to the?
Can I ask
oh,
a
Michael?
question?
Yeah.
Mike, how are you going to go across they label it canal there, but it's the Walton Ditch?
We will, I think I'll have to refer to Charlie over here with HRL, or another consultant, but we have applied for a permit to open cut that through the Corps of Engineers, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the space in which it will, the pipeline will go through is between the culvert that is buried under Upper River Road and the concrete culvert that is under the trail. There's a small section there about 6-8 feet, and Mr. Bob Olson, the ditch rider, has also told us that upon notification to him, he can divert the water back into Woody Creek. But if that happens, we'll of course get a hold of the downstream users and let them know this will be done in short order.
So you're looking at the ditch being shut off for 2 days or something like that?
At the most. At the most, yes. It'll be we'll have all of our pipe welded up, ready to go, dig the ditch, put it in, and cover it up.
How do you prevent water from seeping from the ditch and then following
the pipeline? That's a common problem that we have. There's a use of bentonite in some cases, but we, unless we have approval to use that, we cannot use that. The best we can do is make sure that we have compaction, and I can't guarantee that it won't follow the pipeline a bit.
Have you told that to the ditch people?
Basically, I think if Bob would let us, mixing native soils with bentonite in order to have some cohesion for the ditch walls would be appropriate.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, this is the first part of 3 different sections. The second section is on the WJ Ranch area property. This runs, this is going to be, this is actually going to run along Raceway Drive. Let me zoom out a little bit further. Because the easement's 35 feet in width, they will need to require the right-of-way grant through open space, but the heavy line is where the pipeline is going to go here, and then it runs right under Raceway Drive, right down to McLean Flats Road there, and that's where that section is going to be.
And is that in open space land that?
Where the
that's
actual
on W/J it says.
The actual, yeah, it's the WJ area E property, because the width of the actual grant is 35 feet wide. Even though the pipeline is going to lay right under the asphalt of the road itself, we will require to give them the grant on that part that's going to be that 35 feet width. It's going to encroach into the open space.
Okay.
And again, we have traffic control plans for this if you'd like to see it. And the third one is right on the Smith Hill Way pedestrian bridge. And this is there's currently a 6-inch gas line. This is going up Smith Hill Way here. And then there's the bridge here, and then there's a little pedestrian bridge. And if you look at that pedestrian bridge on the right side of it as you're crossing from the east to the, or I'm sorry, from the east to the west, you'll see there is the 6-inch line running right along the side down by the bridge. So they just need to replace that 6-inch with the 10-inch right on the pedestrian bridge there. And that's the third section.
Okay.
And staff asks that you approve the ordinance and the right-of-way grant.
Okay, this is a public hearing on this also. Does anyone wish to comment? Michael?
When they go up Smith Hill and you follow the new alignment, is that not going to be open space and trails, or what's the land agreement there?
The agreement was reached with the city of Aspen, and Gary, of course, and Matt were both involved. They, as I understand it, operate, so to speak, the trail system with. That's not correct? Let me let Mr. Tenenbaum answer that.
Sure. I mean, City of Aspen owns the Aspen Mass property. We have a trail easement on it for the Aspen Mass Trail. The county runs the trail through Aspen, Mass. What we're doing here is the Aspen Mass Trail has always been one of our two steep trails. It's a very steep paved trail, and it was always kind of like thinking, hopefully sometime in the future we could figure out how to get a better route onto the Aspen Mass property. At the time we were doing it, the Aspen Mass was still potentially housing property. It wasn't just City of Aspen property. After the trail was built, we went through this whole thing where they're not going to build housing out there, and it got transferred to the City of Aspen, and the City of Aspen now owns that property as open space. So when Source Gas came in and asked for, the easement, their original easement would go up this hillside and just be a pretty good disaster to put a 10-inch on the hillside. We were like, how about, there's the old Smith Hill Road over there. How about, and that's a lot less of a grade than the Aspen Mass Trail. So we have the trail easement, the city has the property, and we found a much better alignment around. The county will have the trail easement. The trail will be the county's, and the county will maintain it. But the city owns the property, so we've been working really closely with the city on that.
Okay, great.
So in this case, this is where there's kind of a win-win here, and Source Gas is going to be putting in the new line. And one thing that Source Gas is going to be doing is right now it's only a paved trail. What we're going to do is a multi-surface trail. So we're going to have paved and soft surface, 8-foot paved, 6-foot soft surface. So the equestrians from Cozy Point have a better way down to Jaffe Park and the Rio Grande Trail.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone in the public wish to comment on this? I know that I have gotten comments from the Roaringport Horse Council people that they're really pleased with the fact that there'd be able to be a soft trail going up that steep hill instead of the paved trail now, and there's lots of possibilities they can see for that. I'm sure you've heard the same kind of sentiments from them.
Well, they've been, I mean, you know, now that they've become more of an organization with a voice over the last 2 or 3 years, they've been really pushing for a better connection to the Rio Grande Trail, because going down a 14% graded paved trail with horses is just not, doesn't work for them, so.
Yeah, it sounds extremely dangerous to me.
Well, it is, unless they have the right shoes or something, like a rubberized shoe or something, but even then, if you get a little moisture on the trail,
Yeah.
it becomes really slippery. There was a little way around it on the side, but it wasn't the best solution, where this would be a lot better solution for both bikers and horses.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
I would make a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing a right-of-way grant with the Rocky Mountain Natural Gas to install a natural gas pipeline under the W/J Area E open space property and the Rio Grande Trail.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve. Is there any further discussion?
I want to thank Rocky Mountain Natural Gas for helping assist with that trail issue. I know it's been a safety concern of the counties for quite some time, so we really appreciate your helping us out with that.
You're quite welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Next, we have an ordinance repealing and reenacting Title 6.04 having to do with ambulance service and ambulance licensing authority in the county.
She's behind the post. She's coming. She's coming.
Okay, she's trapped in our maze.
She's hiding behind the post.
A little bit of traffic. Hi, Phyllis Mattice, Assistant Manager.
Richard Cornelius, Basalt Fire, Chair of Pickens County.
And this is a second reading. We did make some minor changes to the Title 6.04 of the county code based on Richard's input and research into the Colorado rules. So you have those, the redlined and the clean copy in your packet. And at this point, if you have any questions.
I think it's all sounded good to us the first time it was explained to us.
Right.
Public comment.
This is a public hearing. Does anybody in the public wish to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the board.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. Thanks for cleaning up the language and making it so that we are in coordination with the state. I think that's important, and the language makes much better sense. Thank you.
I would make a motion to approve an ordinance repealing and reenacting Title 6.04 Health and Safety Ambulance Services of the Pickens County Code and affirming the County Commission as the ambulance licensing authority within Pickens County.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our final item for second reading is a resolution accepting grant offers from Community Office for Resource Efficiency and the Randy Udall Energy Pioneer Grant for the library.
Thank you.
Jody?
Jody Smith, Facility Superintendent. This is the second reading for requesting the Board of County Commissioners accept this resolution to accept the two grants. The first one is the Design Assistance Grant for the Pickens County Library. We had them come in, or they gave us this grant to work with our consultants to design for energy efficiency. And then the second grant the Randy Udall Energy True Pioneer Grant for $145,000 was to implement the energy savings that were identified in that design. Are there any questions?
I have a comment. I was thinking back to one of our first meetings on the potential library expansion, and I remember posing the question to Kathy Chandler, our librarian, about trying to make the new library as energy efficient as possible. And I remember her seeming dumbfounded or flabbergasted by the suggestion, because in her mind it was already a tight budget they were operating on, and she couldn't see how they could afford to put in more energy efficiency things because of the cost involved. And I'm really pleased that CORE got involved in this project, and in a way was found that the library could gain access to these funds to add those energy efficiencies to the project.
Well, and I would just add that really the focus on this was our green roof and the community room, and so the expansion for sure, and along with some measures inside as well. So we really are affecting both inside and outside, so, as far as our drainage.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Does anybody from the public wish to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the board. Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to vote against this for the same reasons I've explained in previous meetings. I've used lots of analogies. The analogy I'll use today is the medieval church in Europe sold indulgences for sins that you had committed or that you might commit, and you could simply buy your way out of those sins, or at least the consequences of those sins, and find yourself in heaven in spite of those, having paid the money. And the source of these funds are essentially come from sins against the environment, and like heated driveways. And it's understandable that initially we wanted to penalize people for those sins against the environment. However, it's become embedded in our structure to allow those sins to be dispensed with, to be indulged. And we then use our funds to make up for those sins. And it's just not a great system. And I think we need to review the system and make it better, and make sure we're doing our part, not to indulge these excesses or sins, but to eliminate them. So,
George?
One of the additional sins that we allow, and which rent monies come from, is imposing a mitigation fee for all homes over 5,000 square feet. And right now, the county allows, through the TDR program, allows homes to be built up to 15,000 square feet, which actually is where the bulk of our rent money comes from, not from heated driveways or outdoor swimming pools. There certainly add to it, but it comes from the house sizes that we allow, which I think is a greater sin. But this being Earth Day, I just want to give a few informational facts in terms of how these REMP funds have been used. And over the last, since the inception of REMP funds, which Randy Udall with some others really came up with, including Steve Knight from the city, since 2000, over $10 million have been sent back, given back into the community to address energy efficiencies, renewable projects, green building. And so the money that has been brought back into the community through REMP and the jobs that it has created, certainly during the recession, to put contractors to work, has far outweighed what the energy use would have been used for heating a driveway or a swimming pool. And just some examples over the last 15 years in terms of community community organizations and nonprofits that have benefited from rent funds, which has drastically reduced our carbon footprint and greenhouse emissions throughout our county. Those grants from the True grants have gone to the Pickens County Library in Aspen, the Basalt Library, and it also includes the Garfield County Library in Carbondale. Schools that have benefited from these grants include the Aspen schools, the Basalt schools, Marble, Carbondale, and Glenwood Springs. Nonprofits who have benefited included ACES, the Roaring Fork Conservancies, Aspen Tree, Habitat for Humanity, the Wild Arts Center, the Red Brick Center for the Arts, and Grassroots Community Television. Transportation entities included RAFTA, WeCycle, and Car2Go. Affordable housing projects at Cedar Grove in Carbondale, at Hunter Creek in Aspen, and Rodeo Place in Snowmass Village. Innovative clean energy projects such as a coal mine methane recovery project with the Aspen Steam Company and solar for income qualified homeowners with grid alternatives. Community centers including the Woody Creek Community Center and the 3rd Street Center. Churches including the Aspen Community Church and the First Methodist Church in Glenwood Springs, as well as some private businesses. So this community has benefited 10 times, 20 times in terms of being able to address greenhouse emissions, using clean energy, which is what Earth Day is all about. So one last note is the deadline for this year's applications for the True grants is May 1st. So thank you.
Rachel?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, George, for that recap of how those funds have been leveraged over the years, and perhaps an individual property owner would not have had that opportunity to leverage funds with other grant programs from the state or federal level. And I think it has magnified the impact tremendously. And personally, I'm very proud of the REB program. It's something that I helped pass and sign into law when I was mayor of Aspen in the year 2000. And so I think people can all have their own interpretation of the history and the intention of the program, but it's not the same that I share. Again, having been there at the origination and working with Stephen Knipe and Randy Udall and others to put it into place. I think that it's really awkward to describe what we might see as someone's excess energy use as a sin. You could say that paid parking is to make up for the sin of driving your car, and therefore it pays and mitigates by providing bus and transit service for all of us. Or that we collect and we fund health and human services for people who are on Medicaid or who need food assistance because the marketplace doesn't pay them a living wage, and we are remediating and making up for the sins of a marketplace that doesn't pay people enough to survive. Similar, you could say we all pay taxes for affordable housing in the city of Aspen, sales taxes, or real estate transfer taxes to make up for the cost of living and the free market society that we all live in that has created such high housing prices. And perhaps it's even making up for the sins of our own slow growth programs and modified growth that have very severely limited housing opportunities for the public. So I think that, you know, society tends to be a larger trade-off than going down the line to try to accomplish the goals that we'd like, and to moderate within a capitalistic system for better outcomes for community good. So I'm happy to reapprove this, and I'm particularly happy that all the people who will use our library in the future will have a library they can be proud of for its energy efficiency, and that we're bringing it in on budget. So thank you.
Patty?
I'm going to make a motion, but first of all, I'm going to say I'm going to sin again and make the motion to approve this. I'm going to put a motion out to approve resolution of the Board of County Commissioners accepting grant offers from the Community Office for Resource Efficiency, or CORE, for design assistance grant in the amount of $9,927.50, and a Randy Udall Energy True Pioneer grant for $145,000. And I want to thank you for bringing this forward. And I want to thank Randy Udall for helping us out with this for all those years.
Yeah, second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve this ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Thank you, Jody. Okay, that ends our second readings of items. The next item is a land use public hearing for the Elam Wagner gravel pit permit annual review 2014. Mike?
Okay, thanks. Mike Kramer with Pickens County Planning Staff. And we have a memo into you, a short one, requesting that we again continue the Elam annual review of their 2014 operations. Staff and Elam and the Bronze are all meeting. We've met, I think, 3 times total now, and are continuing to meet to try and outline some alternatives to satisfy the problem of landscaping. And we're still meeting. We're actually going to meet tomorrow again. Given where we are with the hearing schedule and the time needed for analysis of the alternatives that are on the table, we're requesting that the board continue to May 27th, and then also continue the pit operation to that date. If you remember, we had 2 motions on the table before. That's what we're recommending. And Gail Lyman is here from Elam if the board would like to ask him any questions.
Michael?
I don't want to ask any questions, but it seems to me the issue was that there had been plans in place previously that had been approved by the commissioners, and it was the failure to institute those plans successfully that brought us to this point. So it wasn't a question of more planning, it was a question of executing those plans successfully, particularly the growing of trees successfully. So I just wanted to remind you, and Gail's in the room, that that was the crux of why Elam had come back, because they hadn't been successful in the propagation of that screening. So let's not forget that. The biggest effort should be to a successful implementation of the tree planting.
I had a question. I just wanted to get a reassurance that progress is being made in the discussions you're having, or are the discussions at a impasse and not making progress?
We're not at that point right now. What we're doing is outlining alternatives that the Bronze and Elam could identify as acceptable to each party. And Jody just joined us too. And I don't know if you want me to go into what we're talking about in every alternative that's on the table at this point. And I guess we certainly can. You know, we're in a public hearing, and we could talk about those things. But right now, we're outlining what could be done in addition to landscaping. And duly noted too, Michael. Landscaping, you know, is a large portion of what we're talking about.
I don't really need to know what the specifics are. I presume we'll hear those at some point, but I just wanted to make sure that your meetings were going well and it wasn't a waste of time. And
yeah, my opinion is I'm in every meeting with Cindy Hubin, the Community Development Director, with Gail and Gail Braun, Bill Braun, and Jody, and then also Gail Lyman and Ivan, I forget his last name, but who was also representative of Elam. And we're talking, we're all communicating. I have to admit, this is some of the first times in my history with Elam that we're all sitting in the same room talking about these things. So in my mind, that's good. I feel that all parties are making a good faith effort to get alternatives on the table and to really give them, you know, a process and you know, a good faith effort of trying to find some alternatives to the problem that we're having down there.
okay. This is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public who would wish to speak? And Jody, I would include you, since you came in just late, but if you had any comments you wanted to make, you could at this time too.
I agree with what he said. How's that?
Okay.
We're good with an extension for now.
Do we have a suggested date certain?
May
I do, yeah.
27th.
We said, let me pull the memo out here. We said annual review, we wanted a little bit more time, so we said May 27th, and then also a motion to continue the pit operation to that time then too, so two motions.
Okay, seeing no comments from the public, I'm going to close the public hearing. This is our last public hearing item. Bring it back to the board. Patty?
I'll make a motion to continue the Elam 2014 annual review to a date certain of May 27, and to extend the special review approval for the pit operation until that date. That good?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the continuation of the two items. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Forge ahead.
Take a 10-minute break, Steve.
Okay, 10-minute break. Gives Suzanne time to set up the overhead stuff and Okay, welcome back to the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners on April 22nd. We have one land use action, and that is the Castle Creek Campus Master Plan Amendments. And Suzanne Wolf from the Community Development is here to lead that discussion.
So we're talking about height restrictions at the campus today. The master plan included height restrictions for certain buildings, and basically those restrictions actually were saying everything gets 28 feet, except certain buildings get more height than that, up to 36. Because the campus is under a master plan, when we're varying heights, which normally you might think would go to the Board of Adjustment for a height variance, because it's a master plan, it goes through a master plan amendment. It's not a variance that would be granted by the Board of Adjustment. So just to make that clear, if we throw out the word variance, sometimes it gets, I wonder why it's not a Board of Adjustment. But just to show you the two buildings we're talking about. So you've got Castle Creek Road up at the top, and the two buildings we're talking about. Building number 2, which is the addition to the administration building, which is building number 1. And then here's building number 7, which is a classroom building for the music school. So again, from Castle Creek Road, you're coming in the driveway down into the campus here, and the ponds in the middle. So it's buildings number 2 and 7. And I'll walk through, I'll put up the graphics as we kind of just I go quickly through this. But so on building number 2, the addition to the administration building, the issue is mechanical equipment on the roof. And again, I will just run quickly through these, and then Harry can jump in after when I'm done to speak to it a little bit more. Let's see. What do I have going on here? Nope, that's not it. Oh, I see. The
Oh no, where
light-
did John go?
The light is going elsewhere. Sorry. Now I know what's going. Okay. Let me bring that in a little bit more. So basically here you're just looking at the roof of the building. These are pieces of mechanical equipment, and the screen that we're talking about that goes through here. And this would be the piece of equipment, what is it, you guys can help me, the MAU? It's the other one, am I wrong?
Yeah,
This one?
just that one
Okay.
is the only one that's.
Okay, I thought I had it right, but anyway. But so that one, and again, I'll just show these graphics. I think these are. That is the view of the building from the pond side, and you can see this would be the screen that's projecting up over the roof. And then the view from the side on Castle Creek Road. You're seeing equipment and the screen. Some of that equipment meets the height requirements today. The only issues are that MAU, again, what was that again?
Right.
The makeup air unit. And the
English.
screen. So again, there's a 36-foot height limit to the building per the master plan. The building, they can correct me, but is slightly below that. So anyway, so when we're looking at this, the projections above the allowed 36-foot height limit for the screen is actually about 4 feet, and for the MAU is somewhere in that same range, 4 to 5 feet. Again, the other pieces of equipment that project above the roof are provided for under the code that allows certain encroachments above the height limit. Those are the only two that were that are an issue that would exceed the allowance. There was a skylight architectural element that was shown on the previous plans. I don't know if I have that here. That would have projected about 8 feet above the roof. That is no longer included, and that was again, I think Harry and Mark can speak to that, but it was a fairly noticeable element that would have come up off the roof. That was eliminated as they worked through the design on this. All of these things would be lower than that 8-foot height limit that had been previously anticipated. They've been talking to Susanna Reed about this, given the proximity of the addition to the historic building, which is the administration building. And she's basically conceptually approved. She'll continue to work with them to make sure that she is comfortable and willing to sign off on where the equipment is and the screening of that. So I think that's it on that one. We're supporting that amendment to allow for the additional height for the mechanical equipment. And then building number 7, just one graphic. Again, this is a classroom building. Let's see if I can get this right. So on this side of the building, the east elevation is facing the playing field. Maybe if I go back to that original drawing just for a second. So here, this is the building we're talking about. This is the playing field. I don't know if you remember, but I do, that it was very important for Country Day to get a flat playing field as part of this campus upgrade. And building number 8 is the 3rd large ensemble building that will be built on the campus. So basically, as they were working through the alignment of this building, the playing field, the grades with the playing field, and matching the grades across with walkways between all of the buildings, they ended up with a slight encroachment above the 28-foot height limit on that building. So again, this is the elevation facing the playing field. The west elevation is the one, sorry, we lose a little bit of it there, facing Castle Creek Road. And what we're looking at is a 4-inch to 11-inch encroachment above the 28-foot height limit. Yeah, so that hatched red line that you see there is the change in height. And we're also supporting that amendment for the height. So I think that's it for me. I'm sure Harry and crew can provide more information if you'd like from their end.
Hi, thanks for your time on this. If I had a hat, it would be in my hand and I'd be working it along. Request your indulgence. If we sort of wish we could.
Harry, could you introduce yourself
Oh,
for
I'm
the
sorry.
public record, please?
I'm Harry Teague, architect of the project. Yeah, so.
Thank you.
Harry Teague Architects. As I say, if we, probably should have given ourselves a little more leeway in this. This was a negotiated height limit to begin with, and we probably should have given ourselves a little more room, given the uncertainties. As the project has developed, we've worked within confines of both requirements for the music festival and the information that we had, and we've resulted in a couple of these things that we hope you will consider. The mechanical unit, this is a make-up air unit. I think it's important. We have done exhaustive research to try and find a piece of equipment that would actually be lower. It's already 2 feet off the roof in order to allow air that circulates under it, and then the unit itself is another 3 feet, and that adds up to 5 feet. Quite admittedly, there is a 5-foot limit for mechanical equipment, and in many other parts of I think the town has a 5-foot limit and so on, which corresponds more closely to the kind of equipment that's usually on a roof. So, at any rate, that is the only piece of equipment. It is the original height limit was worked out with Susanna Reed as something to correspond, not to have this building not overwhelm the historic resource that's on the property, and we've done a lot of work in the design of that building number 2, which is the administration and dining hall for the campus, to make that compatible with the old building. And we've been working with Susanna Reed on that, and she is, at least in concept, in agreement with what we're proposing. And she agreed earlier to that 8-foot height exception for that one skylight, and which we're no longer asking for. So I think in this case what we're asking for is to allow either the overall height limit or something to be adjusted so that we're able to use this piece of equipment. We have been very careful to pull all that equipment into the middle of the roof in terms of the layout of where that equipment is, so it has the least impact from all angles. Interestingly enough, the screen, it's a little bit ambiguous as to whether the screen, is a piece of mechanical equipment or actual architecture. And, in this case, it wouldn't be there except for the fact that there is mechanical equipment up there. It improves the aesthetics of the situation, and in our case, it's quite important for acoustics as well, in that this equipment produces some noise that our acoustician has mentioned has some concern. So our screen would play quite an important role in keeping that sound from going out over the campus. And these are all things that are needed for the kitchen makeup area. You have a large exhaust air fan and so on. And as I say, if we'd been clairvoyant, we would have figured all this out 8 years ago when we negotiated our height limit. We didn't. So, yeah. George.
Harry, does the screen exceed the height limit as current?
Yes, it does. The roof of the building is 1 foot below the height limit, and we would like to have a 5-foot high screen in order to screen the noise. In other words, we could do a 3-foot high screen or whatever and be within the height limit, but then it wouldn't provide the acoustic barrier.
So then are you also, or do you have the ability to set back the screen to sort of create a lesser height illusion?
Yeah, and I think there's a roof plan, and if you don't have one, I do, that shows that the screen is set quite a bit back from the edge of the roof. It's hard to tell from the picture. Yeah, okay, all those things, all those dots in.
And then this would be the roof line?
No, okay, that's the roof line, and then the screen, yeah,
Right,
point out the screen, and then the gray blobs that you're seeing there are all various pieces of equipment that are in fact below the height limit. The only one that exceeds it is that box to the left there, and that's that makeup air unit, and that happens to be, a certain size that we've looked for, as Mark says, a Lamborghini, which is low and sleek, but. And it has, we just haven't been able to find one that's more compact. So.
Harry, does this unit over here make noise also?
Yeah, they are. They're actually the round ones are probably the ones that make more noise. But as I say, they're below the height limit. They're fans and things that actually make noise. And we're not, these things aren't precise, but it's not a huge amount of noise, but in our case, the use of this property is such that, any noise that could disrupt the sort of ambience of the campus and so on is. And when we do the screen, and we're showing it on sides that impact the campus, we'd probably like to have it on the other side too for visual reasons, but the acoustic reasons are on the campus side. And as I say, it's really just to keep that fan noise, which in a regular situation would not necessarily be objectionable. The sound of the river would probably drown out anything we'd make, but in this case we have particular sound concerns. And as I say, it's in this case it's more. It's less impactful from a visual standpoint than the actual equipment. It's almost part of the equipment in a way. It's very frequently done. We have set it back. So that's our reason for that one. In building 7, again, what we're trying to do there, it's come up that the nature of these buildings and their levels all tie into accessibility. On one end, the connectivity across the campus and having a field that's actually flat, so it's usable for country day school. Some of the sort of subtle manipulations of the landscape we didn't appreciate until we got some very fine points, and in that case it turned out that one of our corners was 11 inches high. So again, these were negotiated heights, so we're hoping again that we could adjust that. in that location. Any other questions?
Looking on the map of the whole layout of the campus, I'm curious which of the buildings have been built and which ones are as yet.
Okay, and we're working mainly with the south end of the campus, which on the map is to the left, if you're holding it upright. And the building 1 is a historic building, that's 100 years old plus. Building 2 would be our addition, and that's one of the ones with a height limit. 8 and 7. We're moving 18, that's another.
So 7 and 8 have not been built yet?
They have not been built. 8 is another.
But the playing field is already.
No.
Or I remember there was a temporary.
There is that. That is more
somewhere on the campus.
Located about where building 18 is now, or on this map. That would be removed and various things. It was a temporary field for that. And the new one is sort of maxed out in between buildings 8 and 7, and as I say, to get that to drain and whatnot and flat so that the balls don't roll into the pond on their own accord would be.
Unless you're playing water polo.
Yeah, which is good. Right?
So yes, Steve, basically, the new construction is on this end of the campus. And I think we came to you, whenever that was, December or something, when we talked about the construction phasing, and that for this round of construction, Country Day School will remain on campus. The music festival people who remain through the winter are going to move off-site. But so Country Day will still be able to use this piece of the campus. And this doesn't show the new lower school building that was built closest to Castle Creek Road. So they'll be using that end of the campus, and they'll be creating that separation so they can remain on campus during the construction.
If you have a color version, the black ones are ones that were built, and the red ones are ones we're either building or
they all got black and white.
They got black and white.
Well, use your imagination.
For those of us who are colorblind anyhow. Okay. Any other board questions right now?
I would also maybe just point out too that all of these heights are about 10 or even more feet below the level of the Castle Creek Road, which climbs up out of that valley. None of them are, from an impact from that road would come up. They're all well below the level of that road, so you're looking down on them.
Okay, Rachel?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and for bringing this back to our attention. To my mind, it looks like you're being very diligent in attending to what is a 4 to 11-inch grade difference on the one building, and in finding the appropriate screening for the other mechanical equipment. And so I'm willing to make this amendment to the master plan. I'm thinking you're maybe lucky you're not in the city after referendum 1. This would have to go to a public vote.
Do a public vote, come on.
For the variation, but that does happen sometimes. Thank you.
And that's a master plan, so it doesn't. But anyway, I just want to clarify that in the past I had to recuse myself for a conflict of interest. That conflict no longer remains. My husband's not working for Shaw Construction, so it's nice to be able to join you at the table.
My thought is I'm okay with this too. When you look at the plan, the ground level plan, looking at building number 2, just the way the screen is set back, and it actually, I know architects are always trying to do the different levels and different aspects to kind of break up what a roof looks like, and that kind of is the effect of it, having the screen set back a little farther, and on just part of it actually breaks up the roof line and makes it more pleasing to the eye. If you were looking down from the Castle Creek Road, a difference of some inches or feet, you absolutely wouldn't be able to tell the difference anyhow from the road. And it obviously it makes the acoustics better for the campus, and I know, Harry, you're well renowned for having good acoustics, and some of the buildings that you built for musical things. So that's for sure an important consideration in our town, with the music being such an important aspect of it. And then having it be a school campus the rest of the year, keeping any extra noise down, which could be a distraction for students, is important also. So those are the reasons why I can support this wholeheartedly.
Steve, would you like a motion? If we're ready. I'd like to do a motion to approve amendments to the master plan for the Castle Creek campus to allow additional height for buildings number 2 and 7.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the changes to the master plan. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Put your hat on.
Come listen to some music.
Thanks, Eric. It's so cool. Made for the newspaper. Get one for your kids. Yeah, you bet the girls would like that.
It's just the microphone.
Okay, open discussion items. John, I know we ran short on time yesterday.
We're okay today, actually. I don't have anything I need to bring up today. Yeah.
Board members, do you have any items for discussion?
I have one. I just ran into a constituent the other night, and I don't know how we can address this. It's about construction, like trucks, like not like dump trucks, but like pickup trucks, leaving job sites with loose garbage in the back of the bed of the truck and it blowing out all over the highway. She lives out at North 40, and she said she's seen an increase that seems to be where when they pick up speed, it blows out of the back of their trucks. I don't know how if we sent out a memo to, I don't know how we could just ask them to clean their trucks or secure their trash before driving down the highway. I mean, I really don't know how we can address it. Do you have an idea, George?
Well, I mean, it's a finable offense, and so if someone were able to notify the sheriff's department if they have a license plate or name of their contractor.
The other thing we might be able to do on a prevention side is we do have a list of contractors through community development, and we could look into, being able to send out a email or notice.
That'd be great.
If, the board, it so pleases that, hey, we've noticed an increase in untarped vehicles and such.
And trash blowing out.
Yeah,
of
these are
regular
trucks that
vehicles.
don't need to be tarped. It's just their lunch that they toss in the back and it blows out down on the highway.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to see possibly more of that with the season, picking up.
It's a good
You're
thought.
right, it is and I've noticed it at some construction sites that aren't in the county along the Maroon Creek Club. I walk that bike trail now, and there's a lot of trash that's been blown out of their dumpsters that they haven't closed at night. And there's a lot of litter, and I've asked the city, and so far I'm going to take my own bag out there and pick it up the next time I walk through, because I've not gotten anywhere. But thanks, I really appreciate that.
Also, with bears being out now, the dumpster should be closed up anyhow.
Yeah, and on
regardless
these job
of what
sites, they're
someone will-
big,
Yeah.
and it's just,
Well,
it's
some
more
of
like,
those maybe don't have
They
lids,
don't.
those big, huge roll-off things.
and a lot of it's construction products that are blown out.
Yeah.
But it does make sense if we were sending something at this time to also have a note as a reminder that no food products can be thrown in
Yeah,
construction dumpsters
make
on
it
site.
double whammy.
Because of
Perfect.
the bear season, and
It's a good idea.
make it one nice note.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Rachel?
Yeah, I have, I guess, 3 items. One, of course, is that because of the Holy Cross tree cutting story in the paper today, as it should be, we're starting to get a lot of citizen concerns. And I know it was going to take a little bit of time for the attorney's office and you, John, to look through those 2 different easement issues to see what authorities or powers we might have and to try to set up a Holy Cross meeting with their board. I think that's probably where we're going to get more responsiveness to the issue than legalities per se. But it's still, there were a lot of questions raised yesterday that we'd like to see answered about, primarily one of the ones for me was the debris trees left on the trail and so on, and how they're going to go about this. But I just wanted to put that forward because we're not having a meeting again until Tuesday. And the primary question would be that we're not going to issue any permits for access until such a time that we're able to have that meeting and discuss this with Holy Cross.
Is that right?
And we can administratively hold off, I suppose. I'm just looking at John as to, I think we need to look at that.
Okay.
too.
Well, I've already forwarded the first letter I received, and I think that we need to be in communication with the public and be able to either respond next Tuesday at our meeting in some form of what's going on or whatever. So I just want to check back on that. The other two items are legislative items down at the State House. We're starting to see what is the rush of late bills, as it were, where there's very little time. And a few things by way of update: there will not be a CCI broadband bill this session. Despite continued efforts of the staff and Colorado Municipal League working in very detailed partnership, they could not make any headway at all with the industry itself, who were promising some really strong fights, and enough so that they really had a hard time finding sponsors. Diane Mitch Bush was going to be a sponsor for us and for Introduce, but she ended up having both family health problems and personal health problems herself, and said she just didn't think she could take it on, and finding a new sponsor in the face of that sort of industry opposition was just not happening. It's unfortunate, and they are regrouping and looking at other different measures. As we talked about on the broadband issue, it's very likely, and now I would say pretty close to 100%, that we're going to need to go to a vote in November of our public to ask them to get out from those burdens of 152. And I do believe that CCI and CML are working on model language and are taking some of the best language from the communities that have already gone forward with this, and they're hoping to present that to counties across the state as well as municipalities across the state to say, this is your way out at this point in time, and this will send as big a message to industry as anything else when they start to see all these communities opting out. There was kind of this strange, shot across the bow early on where industry presented a resolution, and we're able to get most of our West Slope senators and representatives to sign on. That was a lot of doublespeak, saying that we should remove regulatory barriers to private investment in broadband, and talked repeatedly about private investment, but never talked about public-private partnerships or public role in moving broadband forward. And as we know here in our community, we've really kind of opened the gates and tried to solicit business so far under one model and received zero response for that. And we also hear consistently from industry that they don't want counties putting up carrier-neutral towers that anyone could use, and we could then facilitate the business by having the infrastructure in place, because that's not the type of competition they want. And so it's a really funny way they go back. But in the long short, there's just not going to be a broadband CCI bill this year. The other factors were that it seemed there was a lot of fatigue from having dealt with the hard to serve fund on telephones last year. That was changed legislatively to assist with broadband deployment, and even that, some of those funds are kind of in limbo because there's lawsuits holding it up. So everyone's kind of like, well, we did broadband last year and we're done. And so we just couldn't get anything in there. It's unfortunate. The other two items are, there is newly introduced Senate Bill 232, which is to form a committee to facilitate and study and facilitate the transfer of public lands to the states. And we've all heard about this issue before over the years. There continue to be efforts through the American Legislative Exchange Council to introduce similar bills across the country. I think one just passed the Montana State House by one vote. And so you are seeing all your sportsmen's groups, environmental groups, and recreational users really perhaps finally rising to this effort and speaking out against it. Last Friday at Colorado Counties, Inc., the Public Land Steering Committee, which I'm vice chair, was divided on that issue. There was not a 65%, which is the new threshold to take a position on any bill. there was not a 65% majority to support or to oppose. So CCI formally has no position, and their lobbyists will not be in the room or speaking on it at all. Because of my personal role as vice chair, I feel it'd be inappropriate for me to testify on that bill, as strong as we do have feelings here in Pickens County, because it might give a false impression that there was a position from CCI. I do plan on attending tomorrow. It's the last bill that's going to be heard in the House Ag, theoretically starting at 1:30, and we'll see where it goes, fourth bill up. Just to see, you know, and if broad numbers of other county commissioners do testify in support, then perhaps it would be a balanced forum to make a statement. But I've spoken to John, and with the board's concurrence, I think it would be valuable to send a letter of our opposition to the general concept of the transfer of public lands to the states, that we enjoy the stability of Forest Service management on these lands as opposed to the kind of randomness that may occur under the state supervision. And personally, a major point for me is that the bargain they're asking you to make is to say, Colorado, we'll get all our public lands back, we'll lease it and sell it and get all the revenues and the severance tax, and it'll be great, and whatever. But the other side of the bargain is then giving up all of our rights as American citizens to the remaining public lands in the rest of the West, whether it's Arizona or New Mexico or Montana or Alaska. And that is certainly not a bargain I'm willing to make. So I would ask the board's concurrence that we have John Ely put a letter together on that bill and send it in opposition.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And just, I don't know if we want to add it to the letter, but just historically, you know, President Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, had a tremendous struggle to get the get an organization developed, which became the U.S. Forest Service, because he ran into strong opposition. At that time, it was from the timber companies, that they wanted to be able to go out and log wherever they wanted to and not be restricted by Forest Service. So now, and today, not so much the opposition is from the timber company as it is from the oil and gas development. And so we're in a similar battle, and if President Roosevelt hadn't prevailed back then, our landscape would look tremendously different. Certainly in Pickens County, where 87% of our land is public lands.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, and you know, I agree entirely, George. The bill itself is to form a study committee to facilitate the transfer and economic analysis, and they're proposing that it be made up primarily of county commissioners with public lands, and that the county commissioners with public lands will pay to be on the committee, to form the committee, and to do the economic analysis. And so you run into this real irony that some of the counties with the largest holdings of public lands can be some of the poorest. So whether you're talking about Saguache or Cajeos or San Juan, they have incredibly small budgets and very small economies, and yet that would
Lots
be
of public land.
lots of public land, and so it'd be a real burden for them to carry. So anyhow, that's that one item, again, with the board's concurrence.
Rachel,
It is most likely to die in the House, but again, this is part of beginning to let folks know this really just isn't a well-supported idea.
So, would the thought be to try to send this tomorrow before the afternoon hearing to the committee members or the Democratic caucus of the committee, or what do you think?
I think we could send it to the full committee and then to the House as well, for whatever. I'm not sure what committee it's going to be assigned to in the House yet. It's going to be the Senate Ag Committee.
That's the hearing tomorrow.
Yeah.
So what time is the hearing tomorrow, Rachel?
It's the Ag Committee will be starting at 1:30, and I've heard that's the fourth bill up. So you'd never know if they will rearrange the agenda or add more bills, or some of those will be removed and it will go more quickly.
So if we had a letter ready for me to sign, I'll be in tomorrow morning and get it signed and scanned and sent off.
Okay. So, and we'll hit the...
Well,
Or we could send it earlier with just typewritten.
Well, they've got your signature now.
They have your electronic signature, so they could do that with you not having to travel all
They
the way
do.
back
I
into
did
town.
sign a new electronic signature yesterday for Charlotte, so could put that on there
could.
Yeah.
Unless you want to read what your name is being.
Yeah, I like to.
Well, you know, I was.
But at any rate,
Send it
where do we want to send this letter, at least initially, tomorrow? Just
I sent it to the Senate Ag Committee.
To Senate Ag Committee.
all
and-
members, okay.
All members of the Senate Ag Committee, and then following up with perhaps all the House members.
The House?
Who will be hearing
The
it.
Senate Ag Committee's hearing it tomorrow.
Right, and again, it's anticipated that it will die in the House, and this is a little bit of one of those zombie bills that people are trying to make a point on, but I think it's important to make the point that this is not supported by a county like ours where recreational economy is everything. And within the
Appreciation of
state.
our public lands.
And, you know, the legislative intent, I think it was filled, as I read it, with a lot of kind of opinion, false opinion, that, you know, how inadequate and inept the Forest Service is, and, you know, how much better the state could do. And of course, the irony is that not too many years ago, we had to see the Colorado parks merge with the Division of Wildlife because Colorado State Parks couldn't afford to support themselves and to continue to increase their items. So that's one item for Pickens County to weigh in on. And
John? I just want to make sure, Steve, you're going to be here tomorrow then, or do you want me to send this without
Depending
you?
on the timing, I mean, I could come in, are we gonna meet at 11, John? I could come in earlier than that and sign it earlier if we wanted to get
I
it.
just wanted direction, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, what do you think, Rachel, in terms of my signature?
you know, either way, you know,
Or you could, if you want, email me a draft of it and I'll read it and then just say, it's okay, put my electronic signature on it. And then we could get it out earlier in the morning, and then the senators hopefully would have it and read it before they go into the hearing, which is another matter on their end that we don't have control over.
Okay.
When you said you wanted to send it to the whole House, do you want to wait till we know which committee it's going to be signed to and then send it so it's more specific, or we want to just send it to
if you can
everybody?
track that detail down. I did not know what it was assigned to yet.
Because we're not in a hurry for that one, we're in a hurry for the Senate, to go to the Senate.
Yeah.
So I think that's the priority for tomorrow.
Okay, and then the follow-up with the House as soon
Yeah.
as we know.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And then the last item that's coming up, I do not have a bill number on it, but again, it was first brought to our attention at CCI on Friday of last week, and it's called the Transportation Funding Bill. TRANS stands for Transportation Revenue Anticipation Note. And so it's not based off of a new revenue source, it's based off in the funds that we anticipate to receive from the federal government. Those who have been at this game a long time will remember there was a first trans bond under the Bill Owens administration as governor. He ran for governor parallel with another candidate, and the big issue was, do we need an increase in gas tax or not? I think it was 10 cents. And he said, no, we could fund it with loans. And
Selling off property.
And the 10 cent was failed. And so at the end of the day, we are still paying off those trans bonds, and they go through the year 2018. So they're not even done yet, and we've stopped constructing anything with those funds probably about 10 years ago. Highway 82 in particular was left out, even though we were committed that there'd be funds for buttermilk all the way into Aspen, and then it was changed to say, no, that was just basalt to buttermilk. So we've gotten the short end of the stick. I have checked with Brian Pettit and emailed back and forth, and his assessment was the same. I have nothing against the debt financing, and there's a lot of potential merit to that, of today's construction rates and advancing projects in a fell swoop. But without a new revenue source, you really are just cutting 6 inches off the top of the blanket and sewing it on the bottom and letting the public think you've addressed the problem when you haven't. I'd have to double check this list. They seem to have generated a list of which projects would be funded from the transportation planning regions who were prioritizing projects based on the state being able to allocate a new $222 million a year from the general fund to CDOT under old Tabor rules. And it currently doesn't look like the state will be able to do that, or they'll have to do some maneuvering to do that. And so, again, we're back to a place where the gasoline tax or the revenues going into CDOT have not been increased since 1991. And we've all had our presentations with CDOT. We've seen the regional transportation priority pots go down to $3 million a year when they used to be closer to $15 million a year, and able to advance regional priorities. And so I was planning on testifying that, you know, again, in general, there's a lot of merit to bonding should there be some new revenue source that goes with it. But it's just wrong to let the public of Colorado believe they've solved the problem with a vote for more debt, kicking the can down the road, future generations paying for what we are unwilling to pay for now. And that is a issue where right now CDOT has told us repeatedly and honestly that they are kind of a maintenance organization now. They're just trying to maintain the quality of what they have, and they really do not have the funds for additional capacity expansions. Brian's analysis of this and others, I did consult with Mick Ireland as well, who used to be our transportation rep to the TPRs and to the STAC, was that it will result in greatly decreased maintenance dollars for the roads. This is, again, a 20-year bonding measure, and we have been operating off of continuing resolutions on transportations from the feds for about 8 years or 6 years now. Every time they just do a new 6 month, and they haven't been able to come up with sufficient sources for transportation. There's a lot of hope that there will be a federal bill that is the repatriation of corporate tax proceeds abroad into the U.S. Treasury, that they would then make the source for the next 5 years worth of transportation funding to make the Highway User Trust Fund whole. But it's only 5 years worth of money, and it's a one-time money source. So, you know, you really are going on the next 15 years of your bond repayment, not having the foggiest idea of what the federal government will send to us. So I just want to inform the board of both of those two items and keep everyone abreast of what's going down at the Capitol.
Yeah, well, thanks for doing that for us, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel.
Not at all.
You're getting good at that testifying stuff.
You know, it's just like people giving us a little public comment.
Yeah.
You know, say what you think and try to back it up a little bit.
I had one item, for your information kind of item. I went to the Snowmass Capitol Creek Caucus meeting last night, which there's been a huge broiling issue among some of the neighbors with regards to the town of Basalt having acquired 6 units in a fourplex and a duplex, which were previously owned by Rocky Mountain Institute. And the next door, some of the near neighbors and next door neighbors were really concerned about this and were suffering a lot of angst about the issue. So last night at the caucus meeting, Tom Smith, who's the Basalt town attorney, was the one who mainly spoke and went through the whole history of the property and what the town of Basalt is doing on different aspects of it. And then Mike Scanlon, the town manager, was also there and spoke some. Tom explained it all very well to the caucus board members, and I think most of them, their fears were allayed by and large, and they decided not to pursue any further action, which they were considering action. And one of the actions was, I was anticipating today we could have had a whole slew of them at the public comment period of our meeting today, and none of them came. So I think that was a good sign that they are feeling reassured.
Can I want to add to that? And I learned something yesterday from Mike Kramer about the change in the law related to the fire department case out of Boulder.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be a risk, would it not, for Basalt owning that property? And they could come in pretty much and do pretty much whatever they wanted to do with it, and we only had certain provisions, location and site review.
Location and extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mike Kramer was there and spoke to that issue,
Oh, he did,
explaining
okay.
that part of the procedure, you know, how that would go about. And basically, Basalt's just going to use it for employee housing for Basalt employees, or if they aren't using it for town employees, it could be used for fire department employees or school district employees.
Or they could come back in 10 years and put in a mega complex there,
And
if they wanted to do
they
that.
admitted that it doesn't really, they would rather have their employee housing in Basalt, but because of the Rocky Mountain Institute application, which required them to provide employee housing, that's how the town of Basalt ended up getting
Interesting.
those 6 units. The 2 buildings in question are legal non-conforming buildings.
saw it years ago,
Because they're
yeah.
multi-family dwellings, and they would not be allowed to be built now if somebody came forward with that proposal for that land.
Well, it could be under that new state law, couldn't it?
Well, that's a question hopefully we don't have to answer.
Okay, no, don't answer it. Don't answer it, John. I'd like to
So,
see answer in
just
itself.
so you're informed, this has been an issue with, in the Snowmass Capitol Creek caucus area. It might pop its head up again, although I don't anticipate that it probably will, but the town of Basalt, I mean, by all indications, they are wanting to be really good neighbors, and from what I've seen so far, I think they're being better neighbors actually than Rocky Mountain Institute was. I think they're being very responsive to the neighborhood, and I think they will be good neighbors.
Very good. Thank you for
Great,
the
thanks,
update,
Steve.
Steve. Would you accept the motion to adjourn?
Let me ask the board if it's acceptable to send out a letter in the nature of a thank you. We took a position in opposition to Senate Bill 183, along with other West Slope interests. 183 is still a live bill, however, it has been amended, and short of killing it, having it amended is the probably the best thing we could hope for. 4 legislators in particular worked with the governor's office to affect this amendment. They are Don Corum, Ed V. Hill, Casey Becker, and Diane Mitch-Bush. And so just wanted to ask the board if you thought it was appropriate to send a thank you note to the extent that we know that they participated in this effort or not.
Remind me what the bill?
183 was a bill that would have required a forbearance in the calculation of historic consumptive use.
Oh, the conceptive use bill, okay. I just couldn't remember the numbers.
I think that would be
That'd be a great
appropriate
idea.
to send a thank you. I went down and testified on that bill before the Senate Ag, and those were the 4 supporters of our position that making this retroactive to make our Bosc-Ivanhoe case moot, and they were very receptive to that testimony. So that's good
great.
work, and I really appreciate your doing a follow-up. Thank you.
I'll do it for your signature, Steve. And, so,
Electronic or otherwise?
Yeah,
And I
there's
think-
no real
No hurry
rush
on
to
that
send
one.
it out.
I think the state legislators really appreciate being acknowledged when
Yeah,
they
that's a
do
nice
something
thought,
else. They
John.
have sometimes a very thankless job, and I think they would appreciate being recognized that we realize they worked on this, and so that would be appropriate.
It'll come at a good time, too, when they're getting a little fried down there.
Would you accept the motion to adjourn?
Yes.
I will make that motion.
I will second it.
All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye. Drive carefully, you folks. You're heading to Denver, too?